Welcome to Wisdom Within with Tina and Tonya. If you're done conforming to others' expectations, you're done suppressing your wants and needs, and you're done feeling like life has no meaning, and you're ready to build a supportive relationship with yourself, address resentments and disappointments that come from suppressing your needs and wants, you're ready to transform your life from the inside out, then you're in the right place because we're going to teach you how to do this using practices that will support you in your mind, body, and spirit. So I am Tonya Marie, and this is Tina Zufelt. So welcome, and welcome to our channel. And today our topic is going to be all about wisdom within. So really why we decided to start this from the beginning and why this is so important to us. So Tina, do you want to tell us a little bit about your experience from wisdom, building that wisdom within from where you were to where you are now?
So I spent a lifetime conforming to what other people have told me what to do. So it's been like my whole life. I just did what everybody said. So it took me many years, and it's only been probably about the last 5 years that I finally have decided to, or I finally learned to start following what I want and to be, and what I was, I learned how to journal. I learned how to meditate. I started a gratitude practice, and I just didn't, it took me a long time to finally just accept that that was um, my, that I could, I don't even know.
Trying to find that within. It's like
See,
it's
trying to
almost
find it. Yeah.
yeah, and it's like we almost feel like we need to give ourselves permission to check in. What was it
Mhm.
like for you before you found that? Like, so you were living other people's expectations. Like, what were some of those things, and what challenges did that bring up for you?
So I, I mean, from even the car that I drove, somebody would tell me, my dad would be like, you don't need a truck. You can drive your car and, or drive this car, and it's better gas mileage. It's better this, it's better that. And so I'm like, okay, I'll do that because you say it's better. Um, I mean, even like the people pleasing, it was like I was constantly living my life for other people. So my kids, everybody in my life took precedence over what I wanted. And so as I've gotten older, I finally have learned to understand better what I want, what I like, what feels good to me. And so I'm able to do the things that I want to do. I'm able to understand better what I even like to do because I mean for years I was raising kids, and my kids, what they liked I liked basically. And so I never understood what I liked, and I'm still learning. I'm still trying to find those things that bring me joy, what I love, and learning to understand those nudgings and that feeling inside me too, because like I said, I was always, um, if somebody uh, told me that I should do it this way, or I'm looking outside myself, I'm like, maybe I should ask so and so what I should do, and when I learned to get quiet and start meditating, start understanding better how it feels in my body, or how it feels um, to like understand something, or to I shouldn't say understand, to how it feels to um do the things that I enjoy, or do the things that I like, then I've been able to start accepting that, more in me. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a process.
I know. I think for me too, because it's like you have to go way back because it's
Yeah.
all the way back.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like I hadn't, as as you and I talked about this previously, um, the feelings are coming up. The feelings of that person who years ago um, accepted what everybody else told me that I should do. Those feelings are like, they're, it's like, oh, how did I do that? Why did I do that? And it's yeah, it's a hard one to kind of
Kind of hard to
I
explain.
didn't
Hard to,
expect, yeah, and I didn't
yeah,
expect the feelings to come up, so I'm
I
kind of
know,
like,
right?
ah.
I know for me, like, I mean, of course, there's all growing up. When you're a kid and you're in the home and you're being raised, then of course it's, you know, lots of this is how you do these things. Um, but then for me, it was I was actually more of that little rebellious kid of like, don't tell me how to live my life. I'm not going to do what anybody tells me what to do. I'll believe it my way. And I really kind of lived that when I was a kid. And then after I graduated and I got married, and then it was like everything shifted. I went from wanting to do my own thing to wanting to have connection, wanting to fit in. And I learn by watching others. Like that's always been a huge thing for me. And I remember watching a group of people and thinking, I want what they have. Like they had I mean, I was married, they had the marriages that were lasting forever. And that was what I wanted. And I wanted the happiness. I wanted to be happy. I just wanted to be happy. And so I followed them and watched them. And I was like, if I do what they do, then I'll be happy. And it never occurred to me that maybe what I was seeing was on the outside, not necessarily what was really, I mean, because to me, it's authentic, right? If you're acting that way, then that is how it is. And so I actually started by watching what they did. And then I started having conversations and asking and being taught what they did. And in my mind, it's like, okay, if I do these things, I'll have this result. And so I really started diving down that rabbit hole. And that really was where my people pleasing really kicked in hard because wanted to do what they were saying. Was building a connection with them, believing what they were saying. And I know they weren't intentionally like leading me astray. It was they were teaching what they knew and sharing that with me. And um, but what the end result was that I'd gotten to a place where I couldn't even order off the menu without panic. Like I remember standing in food restaurant looking at the menu, not knowing what to get because not that I didn't know what I wanted to eat, but because I didn't know what the right choice would be. And I was like having a little internal panic moment because if I chose wrong, what would that mean? What would people say? I would get ridiculed, like all the things that came with it. And it's interesting to go back and revisit that girl. I just want to go hug her and say, honey, you can get whatever you want on the menu and nobody cares. But at the time, that's where was I was so looking like every decision I made was based on what someone else wanted me to make, what they thought I needed to do, what I thought they thought I needed to do. I mean, I was making up what they wanted me to do. And the end result was a ball of hot mess. I was so lost and confused, and there was no wisdom within because everything I was doing was trying to find happiness based on what worked for everyone else according to them. And
Wow.
and most of it didn't resonate with me at all. I was like, I I didn't like it. And I really think that we as humans, we have those little nudges from the wisdom within, and we don't know what it is. So I know for me, I described it as feeling caged within. Like I felt like there was a true self of me in here, and I couldn't let it out because, what if I let it out? I knew it wouldn't be following all the nonsense that I was following. But there was something within me that was, I can't really put a emotion label on it. It wasn't necessarily anxiety. Um, but it was a serious unrest and inner chaos. And I knew that somewhere in me, my intuition was telling me this isn't the life I'm supposed to be living, but I didn't know what else to do. So I was totally terrified of even addressing that. I don't know. Do you have anything like
Right.
that resonates with you with like that inner wisdom trying to come out and suppressing it?
Yeah, that, as you were talking, I I remember being a kid. I mean, I was just thinking of, we have I'm older than you, so I have it's a little bit different, but not much. But I remember being a kid and not being able to order off the menu. And I remember the first time I was able to order off the menu, and I didn't know. I'm like, I have no idea. And that just grew all my life from the time I was a kid until, I got older to be in that. And I was in that same, it took me, I was in my 40s, and I I knew all my life. So I've had weight problems all my life. And so I think that that is a big part of it, was those suppressing those emotions constantly, because I'm being told that I should be doing these things. And in my 40s, I started having that same, like what you're talking about, that feeling of unrest, that feeling of there's something more, there's something, and I can't explain it either. I don't know what that feeling was, but it was a knowing that this is not, I'm in a conflict is what it was. I felt like I was in a huge conflict. Um, and then, yeah, that wise woman was just like, she's there, that wisdom within, I should say, was just like suppressed so far down,
Yeah.
but wanting to come out, you know.
Yeah.
And so,
Do you remember anything that like kind of specifically led you down that path? Because I know I have several instances in my life from different people that it was comments that they made, it was just little things that were said, teachings I received, that kind of stuff where I really believed that no matter what I did, I was wrong. So then I really did totally second guess any potential inner wisdom anyway, because I didn't trust myself because of what they had said. And it was really hindsight, I love, because now I know that they didn't know me. They didn't know me. So whatever they were basing that on was their own version of me or their own fears, their own whatever. I don't care. I'm not going to try and process for them, but they didn't have a clue who I was, but yet they were saying things, little things like you're hard to handle, you're tough to be around, like you got to watch yourself, you got to calm yourself down, like all those types of things that made me feel too big, too obnoxious, too rebellious, to whatever. And so I really had gotten to a place where I was like, I can't trust me. Do you have anything like that that you noticed?
oh yeah, most of my life I've had people, um, pushing you down all the time. It's like, my thing was, I'm pretty unfiltered, and I always have been. And people, in my life would. I was always getting comments about being so unfiltered and being so, and I always took that as a bad thing. I always took it as, oh, I've got to really watch my mouth, especially when I'm around these people. Um, and there were just so many times in my life where it, people tell me I should be doing this or I should be doing that. My, you know, close family, and that's where most of my comes from, is close family. Just, oh, Tina, or you're stupid for doing this, or you're doing this horribly, or you're not a good mom, or you're not, you have all this. And I know we do as women anyway, we have that. But when you have those close family members that are constantly, it it knocks you down. It's hard to
Mhm.
hard to grasp, or hard to get yourself back up after that.
Mhm. Well, I think it's because it starts when we're so young too,
Hmm.
where it's like, I mean, starting from day one of, there's a lot of programming that comes with it, like you said, just being women and culture and society and all the ancestral trauma, which we'll go into
Yeah,
someday.
right.
But there's just so much that comes with it that even if we were raised in the quote unquote, perfect household, that would still be there. And there is really almost like this belief that because we're women, we need to be contained a little bit. We need to be given permission or we need to be allowed to do things or whatever. And there is something that we kind of grow up believing that there's something about us that is incorrect or wrong or less than. And yeah, there's a lot of people in our lives that put that on us as well. But like I said, even if we grew up in that perfect space, there would probably be a little bit of that just because it lives in the collective.
Yeah.
Um, and I know that like for me, there was a very distinct moment in my life where I just had this aha where I'm like, I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to do. Everyone else's expectations of me, I was giving every ounce of me into those, and I was failing miserably. And I hated myself. I hated my life. I was in a really not good place with all of it. And I remember just having a day where I was like, I'm done and I'm done. Like it was a very distinct and I'm done. I'm done with all of this. And I knew what all of this meant. Um, but I didn't take action on it necessarily right away. Like it was still a slow because then I'm like, okay, now what do I do?
Hmm.
Okay, I'm done with all
Yeah.
of this. Now what the hell do I do with it? And I didn't have a clue what to do because here I am. I'm married at the time. I have 3 kids. I have this job. I'm like, I don't know what to do now. And so that really, I think, began my turning inward because it was an outward catalyst, the outward pressure that came in that I'm like, and I'm done. But then it was inward because I didn't share that with anyone. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing with this. And I was not willing to bring anybody in on it because everyone in my world at that time were people who wanted to keep me in that suppressed place. So that's really where I started turning inward, was really starting to look at, okay, if I'm done with this, then what? What do
Hmm.
I do now? What do I believe? How do I act? What do I think? What do I do? So I kept like going through the motions of everything because I didn't know what else that what else to do.
Hmm.
Um, does that resonate with you at all? Did you
Yeah.
have like a done moment?
Yeah, definitely. So, I remember as I started running. So I I had started losing some weight, and I decided I'm gonna, start running. And I started running. And running is one thing that will, I, I that's therapy in itself. I loved it. And I would go running and I would do my runs and I would bawl and I would cry and I would have all the shit come up, and and I remember, as I was running, and I don't remember a specific moment moment of I'm done, but I remember during that time, it was like, I, there's something different. I need to be done. I'm done with this. I'm done with all my, all this family that's holding me back. I'm moving forward. And that was when I started. The running was really what triggered the going inward. You're running, and at that time, I was doing half marathon, so I'm running 10 miles at a time. I'm out on, for an hour, hour and a half, just out in my mind. And that was what really triggered it, for me to start really um, feeling and understanding what I'm feeling, and going inward. So yeah.
What were some of the things that you did now? Because then you're like, okay, this is something needs to change. All this is shifting up. Did you have like steps that you remember taking that helped you? I know I went complete shit show. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I went full on rebellious party girl, but there was an intention behind it. So I did have some of that. But did you
I'm
have
glad you were
anything?
intentional.
Yeah.
Um, I moved out of my house. I'm like, I had lost my job here, in the basin, and I worked for an oil field company. And I was like, I didn't even search for a job in town. I'm like, I'm done. I'm out of here. I just want to be gone. And so I searched for a job in Salt Lake. I found a job in Salt Lake, and I started commuting. And I ended up moving to Salt Lake, and I left my house. I left Joe. I left
You left your whole
everything.
life.
I left my life in the basin. I mean, and I just moved out to the Wasatch Front, had a little space out there, and I would commute back and forth. Joe would come and see me. And yeah, I did that for like 3 years before, and then my dad passed away. But um I mean, it was like that. It was like, I'm out and I'm gone. And it was good. It was a good thing for me, but yeah.
Mhm. I know it's kind of, but that's one thing I love that like in what like in our own ways, we each got really inward. Like I got divorced. So, I mean, even though I didn't move away, I mean, I did change houses, obviously, but I stayed in
Mhm.
the same area. But I definitely I really just tuned in. I wasn't asking people, what do I do? How do I do this? It was just, I had to get in my own energy. Now that's my language.
Mhm.
At the time, I didn't have that language. At the time, I was just, sitting there. I remember because I shared kids. So week with me, week with him. And I remember being alone. They were with their dad. And I'm in my house and I'm standing in my kitchen, probably doing dishes. I'm over by the sink. I can still see this. And I just was like, okay, so if I'm not this person that they say I am, then who am I? Because I knew that didn't really resonate with me. And I knew I was being accused of everything under the sun and then some. I was really offended one time because their imagination of me was even better than something I could conjure up, which didn't sit well with me. I was like, what? So, but I remember knowing that that wasn't true. And, but then I'm like, okay, if that's not true, then what is? And I really started to do this inner work. And I wish now I had a guide through that. But at the time, I was just going by myself and figuring it out as I went along. But I was really like, at the core, do I believe this? No. Do I believe this? Mm-mm. Do I believe that one? I don't know, maybe. We'll write that one down as a maybe. Um, but really stripping away all those, like really looking at, okay, why do I feel like I'm a bad mom? Why do I feel like I'm this terrible person in these ways? And as I deconstructed that, I mean, this wasn't all in one day, but I took each of those topics. Every time I would think I was a piece of crap in one way or another, I would start asking myself why. And it was coming up because I don't do this and because I don't do that and because I should do this. And every one of those, I was like, do I really believe that? And most of it was like, no. I don't even know, and so I'm, going back to my high school age of, like, I am not following that rule, that doesn't resonate, and it's almost like I'm mentally crossing all these things off. So when I get it all kind of taken apart, I was like, "Okay, then what what do I believe? What does resonate with me?" And I just started building from there, and it was like I remember the one that I came up with was like, what is the one thing that matters to me more than anything? And it was kindness, that one word, just that one word. And I was like, okay, from here I can build, you know? And that's been fun because now there's so much more to it but everything I've built in place, like that came within, you
Mhm,
know? And so it feels very true to me. And I don't always live up to that kindness mantra, but it's there, and each time, like, everything that has come out since, growth, spirituality, it's all been me rather than someone saying, "Oh, you should be more spiritual," or, "Oh, you
mhm.
should try this." It's been things that have come from within, and that has been so rewarding, and when I look at who I am now and I see how it was like, I built that girl versus, you
Mhm.
know what I mean? It's like that's wealth.
Yeah. I love that. I love that you had that knowing, that knowledge there of what was the one thing that mattered to you the most. I love that, and being
Mhm,
able to build on that. Yeah, I know it took me just to being able to I had to be on my own, just like what you said,
mhm,
and I had to take that time to just, spend my days alone, go for walks alone, just doing my thing. Go to the movie if I wanted to, do the things that I wanted to do, not what everybody else was telling me that I needed to do.
mhm,
And I remember just starting to journal and when I've journaled off and on all my life, but I remember starting to journal and just starting to, what do I just what I feel, and how I feel. And really what started my healing and being able to heal was when I decided, and there's another thing. When I decided to take a Reiki class, I knew with all my heart that I needed to do energy work. And I finally found a class, but I was scared to do it because I'm like, we believe the Native American ways, and I'm like, what? And I finally had to tune in, and my guides actually are the ones that told me that I should do this, or that I shouldn't say should, but my guides were the ones that acknowledged it and helped me to make that decision to to move forward with that. And that was probably the biggest healing um, thing that I ever could have done for myself. It has helped me to grow in so many ways. It has helped it. I had to go through a shit show and a half after I took that first class. And it was like all of these, my dad passed away, all of the crap just came crashing down. But that's where I started growing
mhm,
and started really learning to go within and really learning to understand who I am at my core.
mhm.
So,
And I think too that because one thing that I hear that's consistent with both of us was alone time, like what you
mhm,
mentioned too. And I think it's important because I remember at first, this was before at least before I got divorced, but I remember I was terrified of being alone with
mhm,
my own thoughts. Like when I would travel, um, when I was alone traveling, if I was with somebody, we could chat and it was fine. But if I was driving alone, and I used to say this to people, I turn my music up so loud I can't hear myself think. And
mhm,
And it was all stuff I would sing to. Now I will do that once in a while for fun, but I had to do that because I was terrified of the thoughts going on in my head. I was and now I know that that was that wisdom within saying, "You need to think about what's going on because there's some stuff. There's some shit in here."
Mhm.
But I didn't know what it was. This was still back when I didn't trust myself, and so I was too terrified to even be alone with myself and my thoughts and whatever. And then after my divorce and after all these things shifted, it was giving myself the I don't want to call it permission, but giving myself the time to actually be alone with myself, to be alone with my thoughts, and to actually listen to them.
Mhm.
Because and honestly, even though I was scared of that and there was some deep, dark, nasty, mean shit in there. Oh, things I would never say to a person dead or alive. It was really nasty and mean.
Mm.
But when I gave myself the time to actually hear those thoughts, let them come up. I wasn't trying to, toxic positivity those. Like I was allowing it to come out in the mean, nasty ugliness that it was. And that's when I started looking at that and going, okay, do you really believe this about yourself? And if so, why? And usually there was something had happened to me that led me to believe that. Someone had said something that led me to believe that. Like there was something around that belief that I could deconstruct. And
Mhm.
had I not given myself that time alone with nothing but my thoughts, I don't know that I would be where I am. And even though that was not the funnest thing to go through, it really, like, that is also what cultivated that wisdom within because it was like, this is what's holding you down and why you're feeling this way. Let's bring this up so that we can get rid of it because it actually isn't even true. And none of it was true. I mean,
Right.
yes, things that happened to me, yes, things people said and did to me were real, but the message and meaning that I had assigned to it was what I got to kind of undo. Like I had decided that because they said this, this is what that meant. And then I could work through that. And then, so there was a lot of things that I could get rid of just by sitting with it.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree with I mean, I was petrified of being alone. All my life I've been petrified of being alone. I always thought I had to be with somebody, and s- spent a lot of time as a single mom and, but still always thought I had to be with somebody. And when I was able to take that time alone and just be with myself, it's like another level.
Mhm.
Because you're able to, um, and listen, because, I mean, there are times when you're like, "I don't even want to," but, you know, when you're able to listen, like, that's when you're able to start, cultivating that, wisdom within
Mhm.
and being able to embrace it and accept it and understand that you're not what everybody is telling you you are, that you are your own person and you are worthy, That's the hard part.
Yeah, it
Is
is. And I think a lot of people do a lot to avoid that. We over commit ourselves so that we're so busy that we don't have time to sit down and pay attention to ourselves as well. I
Mhm,
know I'm the queen of I'll do it later. So
right,
I remember, and I think it's good to know because even though we know that there's this wisdom within, like you and I have done a lot of work around this, and yet we still fall into that
mhm,
trap. And I mean, I still do that where it's like, I'll figure it out. I know I need to get into my meditation. I know I need to go within. I'll do it later. I'll do it later. I'll do it later. And I mean, part of that is correct for me because I love ritual. So I want to be able to create the space, have my journal there, do some meditation or whatever to really be able to like I want to go within and I want to be uninterrupted and I do that does require carving out sometimes. So there is
mhm,
some of that that is true. But probably 90% of it is I'm creating this so that I will so I can distract myself and put it off, and then I'll do another and do more, and, I will clean and organize something that doesn't need it that I normally wouldn't do to avoid going within, and it's just so funny how even now I still do those things to put it off.
Right. I do the same thing. I mean, I have I'm similar to you in that, I'll put it off, but then there's the other part of the numbing so I still have times when I'll just numb myself instead of um dealing with whatever is bothering me, which will and we both know that if we actually just sat down and allowed ourselves to go through it for what 90 seconds
Yep,
basically is how long it takes for your emotions to run through.
yep.
If we sat down and dealt with it right then, it would be gone.
Mhm.
But we put it off, and then or like me, I'll numb it, and then it's like, okay, fine, I'll deal with it after weeks of numbing it.
Yep.
Or usually doesn't go weeks, but it will go days.
Mhm.
Yeah, sometimes it'll go weeks. It depends on what it is.
Yeah, yeah. Do you feel like you've had some cool moments that wisdom within came in and helped you solve a problem or work through something? Um, Anything like that that you can like that you noticed? Just I'm kind of thinking of like how does it help? Like if we were to
Mhm.
try to put that into words, something specific.
Um, it helps me when I know, when I'm able to allow that wisdom within to, um, I mean, even like with my business, okay? So if I accept that I know what I need to do for my business and allow that, then I am doing the things that I need to do. But if I don't and think that I need to go outside of my business or outside of me to get more ideas or more this or more that, or then I'm suppressing it. I'm not doing the things that need to be done.
Mhm.
So yeah, that it does help in that. It helps in my just in everyday life basically. I mean, when we know what we want even, or what brings us joy. If you know what brings you joy and you can go do that, it's going to help you um be a calmer person, be, more fulfilled, more, a better person even. So, yeah, that's kind of some of the things, I guess. Is that
Mhm.
kind of what you were asking?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because I know I'm the same way where I and I think one thing that shows me when I'm not listening to it is I don't know that I'd call it it's a mix between anxiety and anxiousness a little bit, but it's an inward feeling of unrest. And
Mhm,
it's usually um because I don't know everything there is to know yet, working on that, but I love to learn and I love to binge and I love to go down that rabbit hole. So when there's something that I don't know and I start to learn about it, I I have to set a boundary for myself of when to cut off because otherwise I keep binging, keep learning, keep going down and it gets to a point where I start feeling really anxious. And that's usually my signal that you've learned enough. Put it away, cut it off, unfollow those people, whatever you need to do. Um, and then just allowing myself to come back to me because I like to learn, but I want that to be a training wheel. Like I want
mhm,
that to be something that I can try while I'm figuring it out, testing it out, trying it on myself, and then at some point I want if I like it, it's something that I want to take off and create and make my own. Um, so that's kind of like what that feels like for me. Um, I've had some really cool breakthroughs that way though, even with aha moments of, people that I've always really resonated with and followed and enjoyed their motivation and their topics and their content. And I realized over time that that was actually causing some of it, even though it was great, it was phenomenal. It was all personal development and building you up. There got to be a point where, and especially once I started diving into human design, I realized I'm not built that way. And I had been beating myself up because I wasn't reaching those heights, I guess, and maintaining that power, that steam, that thread, whatever. And I couldn't do it, and no matter how hard I tried, I wasn't achieving in that way. And again, it started hitting to my mental health and making me feel not enough and why can't I and what's wrong with me. And now I know that's because that's designed for someone completely different. And so it's been cool to be able to just let it go. And I
Mhm.
still love and respect those people and think the world of them, but I don't follow them anymore because I don't like the way it makes me feel. That's me again going outward. And then I start judging myself based on those outward versus like, okay, what can I do then? What feels good to
Mhm.
me? How do I want to do that? And kind of tweaking it that way.
Right. That's I I do the same thing. I feel like and the anxiety, I get that same too. Like if I'm doing too much of the outward, then I start feeling anxious. And I found so I do ceremony, and the one thing that really got me was like when I first started learning ceremony, and it's like I'm like this with everything. So and I didn't realize it until I started doing the ceremony. When I start learning, it's like there's rules. You have all these rules, and I need to follow all these rules, and I need to understand what they're telling me that I should do step by step. I should be doing these things step by step. And when I started doing ceremony, I learned that um, I am to make these my own. I'm to make this, in my own way and do these things my own way. And that they don't have to be the exact same thing every single time. And so for me, that was kind of like a big aha to where I was like, oh, and what feels good to me, not what everybody else is doing, what feels good to me. And so that kind of has, like what I said with the business and whatever, when it's feeling good to me, then I know that I'm doing it in authenticity, because authenticity to me is one of the biggest things. And so if I'm being authentic and I know it's feeling good to me, then I'm in my authentic knowing, my inner knowing. I'm in my authentic self.
Hmm.
So,
So I do want to bring up because I know that this is real as well. Because I don't want to paint this picture that when you start living with the wisdom within that it's all amazing because so with what you just described, like and it brings you joy, you're doing it right. That wisdom within is like shining through. But that doesn't mean that there's not still imposter syndrome, there's not still fear of rejection, there's because when you follow it and do it exactly their way, there's no judgment, right? Because you're doing it exactly the way that everyone says you're supposed to do it. And so it's a lot less risky because you're doing it as you're told. But then when
right.
you take off those training wheels and you start doing it your way, what comes up for you then?
Oh man. So you just talked about the imposter syndrome, and that has really come up for me recently, um, in ceremony and in doing ceremonies and things. And yeah, it's hard so it's hard to be your authentic self, basically. Because yeah, it is easy to follow somebody else's rules because you're not being judged. And then so we have, and I don't know that everybody's judging me, but we have that thought in our minds that people are going to see what we're doing, and they're going to judge us. And maybe I'm not doing it just the way that everybody says it should be done, they're going to judge me. Or maybe maybe I am doing it wrong.
Yep.
you know. And so yeah, it definitely it's a hard one to come up with, but when we are in that authentic, joyful place, then we know, we feel it, we feel good.
Mm.
And so it's like you said, it's not always roses and unicorns, but
Yep, I definitely, because I think that's important, because even though for me there, it's so rewarding and it feels so amazing when I'm doing what feels right to my soul. Um, but that doesn't mean that it's easy, and it doesn't mean that it doesn't come without fear. It's not like, oh, this is the direction I'm going to take, so full steam ahead, and I have my, like, I don't, like, nothing else matters. I mean, that would be nice. And I do have
right.
moments where that is the case. But if it's a stretch and if it's something that's taking me out of my comfort zone, or I'm putting myself in a place to be more seen in that way, that's tough. I mean, and it doesn't matter how big it is, like from divorce, which is obviously big and very public and very huge, to little things I do in my business, to choosing to bring energy healing in, to whatever it was, whatever I do.
Mhm.
Um, Even though I know I'm following that inner wisdom, it still comes with, I don't necessarily want to say a cost, because that implies that, it's kind of expensive or heavy or whatever. It's not necessarily that, but it does require me to level up in a different way, where it's like, and it's funny because I watch myself not wanting to put it out there, not wanting to talk about it. And then all of a sudden it's like the light switch hits and I'm like, okay, I don't care anymore.
Right.
And then I just, that's me. That's correct for me. But usually by the time I throw the doors open, I've done a lot behind the scenes to get to that point. It's not like, oh, inner wisdom kicked in. I know what direction I'm supposed to go. And now I'm throwing the doors open. Like that might be correct for other people. But for me, it's like I have to do a lot behind the scenes. And it's almost a coming to terms with it within and being okay with it within. And then I'm like, okay, now I'm good. Now I can go.
Yeah.
And even when I throw those doors open, there's still like,
That cringe. Yeah.
yeah, like you start walking through it almost like, oh, like this is my body language. I don't like walk through all open. I hunch through there, tiptoe.
Right. Yep.
Um, but it becomes comfortable more quickly because I know I'm
Mhm.
on that right path.
Right. I agree. I'm right there with you. It's the and I know you and we've talked so much about this, but it's like I I have to push myself, and it is that leveling up.
Hmm.
But it is so rewarding if when you start listening, when you start ex- receiving that inner voice and receiving that knowing and
Hmm.
allowing yourself to receive, it's rewarding.
Hmm.
Not easy, but it is rewarding.
And I feel like one thing that's the most rewarding for me is also looking at how it's a ripple effect, right? Like it starts here and we start doing our own work, but watching how it kind of spreads going out. Like the way I parent my kids is completely different. The conversations I have with them are totally different. With my partner, like our communication looks differently. The things I talk about. I mean, there's just the friendships that I have. I mean, people that aren't healthy for me have really just dropped away and kind of gone away, and I don't try to keep them in anymore. Like I allow that to be complete, and then I've been able to bring in new and supportive relationships that really really like support, and I don't have to pretend or what, like the transformation is huge and the ripple effect is big. And I
Mhm.
think that's something that I really value too. Is it is just for me and we are enough and it gets to just be for us. but it's really fun to see how that spreads too.
Mhm. I
Um,
agree.
even just like even just the conversations and the things my kids ask them, and it's cool. It's just cool.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
rewarding.
it is, and it's a different feel for sure when when you are in that knowing, and I agree, I love that ripple effect. Um, and a lot of times you don't notice it until you look, you know, but, my relationship with my kids is different too. My kids are all grown up and gone, and I have grandkids and whatever, and we all have a different relationship than we did when they were younger. Um, I have a diff I mean, I have a different relationship with myself.
Yeah.
I have friendships who are that I never had in my life before. I have, some close friends. I have, um, yeah, it's, and like you said, I have a lot that have fallen away, which is fine.
Hmm.
And I don't, try to hold on to any of that anymore. So,
Let
yeah,
them ride off into the sunset.
exactly, exactly.
Yep. So we've covered a ton of stuff. Are there anything that you think that we missed or anything that you want to make sure we share before we close?
No, I think we've covered a
Covered a
ton.
lot. Uh-huh.
Um, I do I do think that, some of the main things, uh, main ways of understanding your wisdom or whatever, it starts with awareness
Yeah.
and being aware, and then, moves out from there. Meditation is good, journaling is good, all those things. So,
Not being afraid to be with yourself, to let those scary dark thoughts come in and see where they're stemming from
mhm,
and why. And even like verbal processing, because I know we've talked a lot
oh
about
yeah,
going within, but I also know we've both expressed how sometimes just finding someone who can be a sounding board and listen and not try to fix it for us, but just allow us to speak, we can really get some ideas just and answer our questions. Like that inner wisdom comes out in our
right,
conversations. Um, and then really connecting to how our body feels. Because I think like we're so used to numbing it. We're
mhm,
so used to and it's so easy to shush it for a while, but it will get louder and louder. And so I think that's really important to just be okay with the signals your body is sending you. And rather than be afraid of them and think that something's wrong, to actually just be like, okay, this is my awareness. What is it
right,
saying?
right,
And kind of kicking that into. So
yeah,
yeah, we've covered lots of good nuggets, I think.
yeah, we have.
All right. So we will go ahead and close out for this one. We'll have another really good topic coming up soon. So hopefully, if you like this, hit that like and subscribe button for us and come back and hear more of this wisdom within.
All right.